Solitude is often misunderstood. For many, being alone is synonymous with emptiness, an absence that must be filled at any cost. We live in an era of incessant noise, both external and internal. Social media, notifications, overlapping information, pulling us away from ourselves. But Carl Jung invites us to see solitude from a deeper perspective, as a sacred space where the soul can breathe, where silence becomes the language of renewal. Jung used to say, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." But this inner gaze is only possible when we allow silence to envelop us. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of something more subtle, a fertile ground where our most authentic thoughts emerge. When we run from solitude, we are, in reality, running from ourselves. Modern times seem to fear silence. The noise of the external world has become a shield against the discomfort of being alone with our own minds. Jung understood that there is a regenerative power in solitude. He saw it as an alchemical process where the psyche has the opportunity to reorganize itself, to heal from the external influences that corrupt it. It is in solitude that we come into contact with the unconscious. What we avoid in daily life, our fears, our shadows, our doubts, resurfaces in silence. And it is in this encounter, no matter how uncomfortable, that we can integrate these rejected parts of ourselves. This is the true process of individuation, becoming a whole being, not by denying our imperfections, but by accepting and understanding them. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow. The shadow, that part of us we avoid, does not disappear when ignored. On the contrary, it grows and manifests in unconscious ways. In bursts of anger, in self-destructive patterns, in unexplained anxieties. The silence of solitude forces us to face this shadow head-on. It compels us to recognize who we truly are, without masks, without distractions. But here's a curious paradox. The more we resist solitude, the lonelier we feel. We seek external connections to fill an internal void, but that emptiness is never truly satisfied. On the other hand, when we learn to be truly alone, we discover that solitude is not absence, but fullness. In silence, we find a different kind of company, that of our own essence. Thus, the regenerative solitude that Jung proposes is not a bitter isolation, but a necessary journey. It is a return to the center, where the world's distractions lose their power over us. And when we emerge from this silence, something within us has been reorganized. We see the world with new eyes because we have learned to see ourselves more authentically. True transformation begins in this silent space. On the journey of self-discovery proposed by Jung, solitude is an active process, not a passive condition. It's not just about being alone, but about being present with oneself. This is what differentiates destructive isolation from regenerative solitude. Isolation is an escape, a fear of others or the world. Solitude, on the other hand, is a return to the inner home, a moment where we allow ourselves to exist without the need for external validation. Jung understood that this process of silent introspection was essential for the development of the psyche. Without it, we become prisoners of external conditioning, unable to hear our own voice. The modern world subtly pulls us away from this inner encounter. The constant need to stay busy, the compulsion for entertainment, the urgency to respond to every stimulus. But all of this only serves to keep the mind distracted and disconnected from what truly matters. In the silence of solitude, we uncover deep patterns of thought and behavior. We observe the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. Some of these narratives are inherited from culture, family, and society. Others are scars from past experiences that still shape our worldview. This process of self-observation gives us the chance to rewrite our narrative, freeing ourselves from beliefs that no longer serve us. Solitude teaches us to listen, and when we listen carefully, we realize that within us there is a wise voice, the one Jung called the self. The self is the core of the psyche, the true I that transcends social masks and the roles we play. It reveals itself in silence, when the superficial layers of the ego dissolve. This contact with the self gives us a sense of direction in life, a purpose that arises from within rather than from external expectations. But this process of regeneration is not always comfortable. When we dive into silence, we come face to face with everything we have avoided for years. Unresolved traumas, hidden fears, repressed desires, all that was pushed into the unconscious resurfaces. However, Jung believed that this confrontation was necessary for healing. We cannot transform what we do not acknowledge. Modern society conditions us to seek answers outside ourselves. We are led to believe that happiness lies in achievements, possessions, and recognition. But Jung reminds us that true transformation is an internal movement. Silence teaches us that we don't need to fill every empty space with distractions. On the contrary, it is within emptiness that new possibilities emerge. Throughout history, great thinkers, mystics, and philosophers have understood the power of solitude. Buddha found enlightenment in solitary meditation. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert before beginning his mission. Nietzsche said, "The man who cannot endure solitude does not love freedom." All these examples point to the same truth. Well-used solitude is a portal to renewal. And when we emerge from this silence, we are no longer the same. We are more centered, more connected to our purpose, stronger in facing the outside world. Regeneration happens when we stop running and learn to inhabit our own presence. The regeneration that arises from solitude is not only psychological, but also physical and spiritual. Silence has a profound effect on both body and mind, allowing them to reorganize in ways that become impossible amid the chaos of daily life. Jung saw this process as a form of inner alchemy, where the individual, by withdrawing and confronting their own essence, undergoes a kind of transmutation, becoming something more whole and integrated. When we step away from the incessant stimuli of the external world, the nervous system shifts from a constant state of alertness into a mode of recovery. The brain slows down, the heart rate decreases, and breathing becomes deeper. This isn't just a subjective experience. Modern research confirms that silence and solitude reduce cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and enhance the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for relaxation and bodily regeneration. But something even more subtle happens when we immerse ourselves in solitude. We begin to realize that behind the external noise, there exists a vast, unexplored inner space. This space is not empty, but filled with potential. Jung called this realm the collective unconscious, a reservoir of symbols, archetypes, and ancestral wisdom that influences our thoughts and behaviors in ways we don't always consciously understand. When we allow ourselves to silence the mind and listen, unexpected insights emerge. Many of humanity's greatest breakthroughs were born in these moments of silent introspection. Scientists often report that their most significant discoveries came when they were alone, far from the busyness of the lab. Artists and writers frequently find inspiration in periods of isolation when they can connect with something deeper within themselves. Jung himself spent long seasons in his Bollingen Tower, dedicating himself to contemplative thought and self-discovery. He believed that it was in these moments that his psyche reorganized itself, allowing new perceptions to surface. However, there is an interesting paradox. While solitude reconnects us with our essence, it also makes us more capable of forming genuine relationships. This may seem contradictory in a society that equates sociability with constant presence among others. But the truth is, those who never spend time alone often seek in others something missing within themselves. They project their unmet needs, insecurities, and emotional voids onto the outside world, hoping it will fill the gaps. On the other hand, those who learn to be at ease in their own company become more authentic in relationships. They do not seek others to fill a void, but to share a sense of wholeness. Well-used solitude makes us less dependent on external validation and more capable of building connections based on truth rather than need. Jung teaches us that individuation, the process of becoming truly ourselves, requires moments of isolation. The path to true transformation does not run through the noise of the world, but through the silence of the soul. And it is there that we finally find what we have always been searching for: a deeper meaning to existence. This journey of self-discovery through solitude and silence leads to a profound awakening. When we stop seeking distractions and face our own essence, something within us aligns with a more authentic rhythm, one that is closer to our original nature. Jung understood that modern man, surrounded by technology and endless commitments, had become disconnected from this inner rhythm, losing touch with the self and, consequently, with the true source of meaning in life. Individuation, a central concept in Jungian psychology, is this process of returning to wholeness. It is a solitary path, but not in the sense of isolation. Instead, it is a deep dive into the soul. Along this journey, we encounter our fears and shadows, but also our hidden strengths and gifts. Regeneration happens when we allow ourselves to face all of this with honesty and acceptance. Silence offers us a portal to this reunion. When it settles in, we realize that within us exists a continuous flow of thoughts, inner voices, memories, and emotions, things that usually go unnoticed amidst the noise of daily life. At first, this can be uncomfortable as we confront what we have long avoided. But over time, we learn to observe these thoughts without identifying with them. We come to see that we are not our fears, nor our insecurities. We are something much greater. Spirituality, across different traditions, has always recognized the power of silence and solitude. Buddhist monks spend years in silent meditation to understand the true nature of the mind. Desert mystics, like the early Christian fathers, sought solitude as a direct encounter with God. Shamans, isolating themselves in nature, received visions and wisdom. All these traditions point to the same truth. There is something in the experience of silence that transforms, heals, and regenerates. Though a scientist, Jung understood this spiritual dimension of the psyche. He believed that the human psyche had a transcendent aspect, something beyond the rational mind and ego. For this reason, he did not see solitude merely as a psychological necessity, but also as a means of accessing the deepest and most sacred parts of ourselves. Conscious solitude reconnects us not only with ourselves, but with the whole. When we detach from distractions, we begin to perceive the interconnectedness of all things. Nature teaches this in silence. The wind passing through the trees, the rhythm of the ocean waves, the rising and setting of the sun. Everything has a cycle. Everything renews itself in silence. And when we attune to this natural rhythm, our own life begins to reorganize itself. And so, when we emerge from silence, something within us has changed. The anxiety that once consumed us loses its grip. Everyday worries no longer dominate us in the same way. We discover a new way of being in the world, calmer, more aware, more authentic. Solitude and silence are not enemies. They are teachers, guiding us back home, to the center of our own being. If this video brought you valuable insights, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue exploring deep topics about the mind, soul, and the journey of individuation. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you deal with solitude and silence? Are they a refuge for you or a challenge? And before you go, check out the videos appearing on the end screen. They were handpicked to deepen your self-discovery journey even further. See you in the next video.